All right, let's get into it. We're about to unpack one of the weirdest, most confusing economic puzzles of the last century. We're talking about a time when it really felt like the entire global economy just went completely haywire. This is the story of the stagflation trap.
So here's the core question, the real mystery of it all. Just try to imagine this. The money in your bank account is worth less and less every single day because prices for everything are just skyrocketing. And at the exact same time, people all around you are losing their jobs. It just doesn't make sense, right? How can an economy be both frozen solid and on fire at the same time?
To figure this out, we have to jump in our time machine and go all the way back to the 1970s. This was a decade that threw a curveball so strange, it pretty much shattered the old rulebook of economics. I mean, all the theories that had guided world leaders for decades, they just suddenly seemed totally useless. You see, the standard thinking back then was that you could have one of these problems, but not both. The idea was pretty simple. If the economy was slow and a lot of people were out of work, prices were supposed to go down. And if prices were going up, that's inflation, it was because the economy was booming and jobs were plentiful. But both happening at once? Nah, that was considered basically impossible. So what on earth happened? What was the spark that lit this economic fire? Well, it all kicked off with one thing, a resource the whole world depended on, oil. This was the moment of the first great energy crisis. So in the early 70s, everything was ticking along on cheap, predictable energy costs. But then in 1973, the game completely changed. OPEC, the big cartel of oil-producing countries, decided to cut way back on production. The effect was instant and honestly catastrophic. Global energy prices didn't just rise, they skyrocketed. And by 1974, this wave of inflation was just spreading across the entire planet like wildfire. And here's why it was so bad. Oil wasn't just gas for your car. It was used to make plastics, to power factories, to transport goods, you name it. So all of a sudden, the basic cost of making literally anything and doing basically everything shot up for every single business, from the massive corporations down to the smallest mom-and-pop shop. Well, this brand new, totally unprecedented problem needed a name. And economists came up with a term for it that sounds just as ugly as the situation felt, a real economic monster. And that name is stagflation. It's what you call a portmanteau, basically two words just mashed together. You've got stagnation on one side, which means the economy is just stuck in the mud. Think recession, zero growth, and lots of people losing their jobs. And then you've got inflation, which means prices are just climbing and climbing. It was the two worst-case scenarios all rolled into one nasty package. So let's break that down. On one side of the coin, you have stagnation. The economy isn't growing, unemployment is high, and it feels like a recession. On the other side, you've got inflation. The cost of living is through the roof, and the cash in your wallet is buying you less and less every single day. The 1970s was the decade that proved, yeah, you can absolutely suffer from both of these economic diseases at the exact same time. And the scale of this was just mind-blowing. In the US and in Europe, they were grappling with double-digit inflation, over 10%, and that was considered a crisis. But in other parts of the world, like Israel, the situation was just off the charts. The inflation rate hit an almost unimaginable level of around 450% in a single year. So you can probably see why economists call stagflation a complete and utter nightmare for the people in charge, like central bankers. And the reason is pretty simple. Any tool they had to fix one of the problems would make the other problem a whole lot worse. They were caught in a trap with no easy way out. And this is that impossible choice they faced. Okay, look at Path A. You want to fight inflation, right? The textbook move is to raise interest rates to cool things down. But the painful results of that, you probably push the economy into an even deeper recession, and way more people lose their jobs. All right, so what about Path B? Let's fight unemployment instead. You lower interest rates to get the economy going, but that's like throwing gasoline on the fire of inflation. You're stuck. And that's the key takeaway here. There was no magic pill. There was no easy answer that could fix both problems at once. Every single path they could take came with a really heavy social and economic price tag. So what does this all mean? What is the big lesson we can pull from this incredibly painful time in economic history? What did the stagflation trap of the 1970s ultimately teach us? It really all boils down to this idea. As our source material so perfectly puts it, the economy is sometimes an arena of painful compromises, not easy solutions. And that's it right there.
It's a huge reminder that managing an economy isn't about finding a perfect fix. It's often about choosing the lesser of two evils and making tough, painful choices that affect real people's lives.
And that leaves us with one final, very tough question for you to think about. If you were in charge, caught right in the middle of this trap, what would you do? Would you focus on stopping those soaring prices, even if it meant more people would be out of work? Or would you try to save jobs, knowing full well that inflation could spiral even further out of control?